Hello, everyone, and thank you once again for joining us on Dojo Live, our first and only live show for this week, actually. Tomorrow there is no show, and Thursday it's our monthly all hands. But we saved it. It's going to be great. It's a great show. So it's my pleasure to introduce our guest today, Keatly Haldeman from Dequency. So I don't know if you're there, Keatly. There you are. Perfect.
Ooh.
Co-founder and CEO. Thank you so much for joining America Guerrero, my co-host.
Hello, everybody.
Today. Yes. So today's topic is actually really interesting. So you music lovers out there, you're going to love this one. We're talking about the soundtrack to the Metaverse. So if that kind of blows your mind a little bit and you've got questions, stay tuned. But what we'd first like to do is to get to know you a bit better. Keatly, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, so I'll go way back. I've been playing music since I was 5 and played in bands since I was about 11 years old. And then I was in some form of a rock band or making electronic music from 11 till 30s.
Wow. And what was your participation? Are you like bass,
I'm
guitar,
a
drummer,
drummer,
singer, vocals? Okay.
Yeah, I'm most comfortable behind the drums. I play guitar poorly. I play piano even worse. And then I got into producing music in my 20s and got decent at that. And then so I went to college for electrical engineering, took a year off to play with my band, tried to make it. We didn't make it. So I went to grad school, and then after that, started a company composing music for TV, film, advertising, and video games. And in the middle of that, actually, my cousin was producing a film, her first film, and she needed someone to do all the music and the audio and everything related to sound and audio. And she asked me to do it, and I hacked my way through that. And then that's what inspired me to get into music for picture. And initially on the creative side, custom composition side. At that same time, I got myself into another band, produced an album for my band, tried to figure out how to make money with the band. And so I was introduced to a music supervisor for an MTV show, pitched the music to him. He says, "Hey, this is great. What I really need is hip hop. Do you have any hip hop?" And so I called a friend who had a hip hop band and I asked if I could pitch their music. Got introduced to somebody else, pitched my band. "Hey, this is great. What I actually need right now is heavy metal. Do you have heavy metal?" So I realized that every time I was getting introduced to someone that had a TV show or music supervisor for a video game, they didn't need the thing I was pitching at that moment, but they needed something. So I started then gathering more music to represent just for sync licensing. So that's called sync licensing. Every time you see any audiovisual production like a TV show, film, advertising, video game, when there's music associated with it, there was a synchronization license that was executed to allow for the right for that music to be used. In the industry, it's called sync licensing. So that was what I got into. And then that morphed into a music publishing company where we were collecting royalties around the world and representing songwriters and helping to get music created. And then that morphed into a record label. So that last business was called Riptide Music.
Okay. Takes you to Dequency. I love it. I love your story because, you know, it's not often that you get to hear someone who's making a living off of what they love. And I think congratulations for that. And I think the shift where you were also able to pay attention to just what was happening around you to really make it work. That's amazing. Congratulations, Keatly. So tell us a bit more about Dequency, your current company.
Yes. So Dequency is a decentralized sync licensing platform. And a little bit of a backstory. So sync licensing can be very challenging. With every song, there are 2 copyrights of the song. There's the song, the lyrics and melody, the composition, and then there's the recording of the song. And whenever there's a sync license, both the recording and the composition have to be licensed 100%. And the 100% part is important because music is inherently a collaborative medium. So songwriters get together and they write a song, a band, a producer, and an artist, featured artists. You know, there's especially with contemporary music, there are typically many different songwriters, and oftentimes there are multiple publishers that will represent, own, or at least manage the rights to an individual songwriter. And then there's a separate artist usually, or at least a separate record label. So in the case of a song that has 3 songwriters, 3 separate publishers, and an artist and a record label, that's at a minimum 4 different approvals for any license, and usually the talent, the writer or the artist also has approval rights. So that's a minimum of 8 different approvals to license that one song. So it can be challenging, messy, right? So messy and expensive, and take a lot of time, and really you have to have an expertise in knowing how to even find who the rights owners are, how to negotiate a fair deal, and go all the way. So it's usually only the biggest productions that have the ability to do that. The major TV and film studios, video game studios, major brands, major ad agencies, and they hire people who have years of experience doing this. To address the rights issue, there have been a few different things that have come along throughout the years. Production music libraries have been a big one, where that is music that's created specifically to be put behind audiovisual productions. And that's typically very inexpensive and easy to clear. It's called one-stop rights because the company has both the recording and the publishing rights all in-house. The challenge with that is the music is made to work for picture. It's not made for consumer, for art, for fans, right? So, and then you can tell that, right? There's a lack of passion and authenticity oftentimes with this music, and sometimes you can't quite put your finger on it, but if you hear it, you know. And even if the music is amazing, still there's no visual component to it. There's no story there. There's no artist. There's no art. It's utility music. So, there have been many companies that have created catalogs around one-stop commercial artists. And again, just to address this point of easy licensing, and these can be amazing artists, but typically they, as an artist elevates in career, there are more people associated with this artist. Even if the artist is a solo singer-songwriter and wrote the song 100%, most of the time it's going to be a separate publisher and a separate record label that control it. So there's still even 2 clearances there.
I can't imagine the amount of work that is behind All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey. I just saw that news today. Or the one from the what's the TV show that it's really famous right now? The 4th season. It's like a new, whatever.
Stranger Things. With,
that's
Stranger Things. Yeah.
I can't remember her name right now. She was,
Well, and music supervisors and production companies that know what they're doing can get these songs licensed fairly quickly because they have relationships that they've built up over time, but it's still expensive most of the time, and it still takes effort, and it's still offline. You have to negotiate each license and then bill, and it's a whole thing. So as the rise of internet came about, Web 1, Web 2 technology, there were online licensing catalogs that sprung up, all one-stop catalogs, some with a production music library style, some more representing indie artists. And the purpose of that was to make it easy to license to people who want to license. And usually it's not these major productions, it's sort of everything underneath, and that's a massive market. So if you think about the local plumber that needs a social media video advertising services, for a 30-second video, live streamers for video game stuff, social media, there's just all kinds, and it's just exploding. Everyone with a phone has a high quality camera, and they want great music that they can put behind their video.
Of course.
And why don't people just take whatever music they want, just go on Spotify and download it? Well, one, that's illegal. But besides it being illegal, if you want to then display it anywhere like YouTube or Facebook, they have technology that will flag it and take it down unless it's been licensed properly. So if you don't want your video taken down, you're going to license it properly. So a lot of these online licensing companies have sprung up to service that. They also service major ads and they often do bespoke work. The challenge that we saw, in, me and my co-founder George Howard, here's the paradigm for the Web2 licensing companies. So they typically don't own their music; they represent music copyright owners. And if I'm someone that owns rights, and let's say I own the recording and the publishing, and so I have the right to be able to make it available for licensing here, I have to email somebody, or maybe there's an online form, and there's going to be a gatekeeper. It might just be one person that maybe has biases, or maybe they just have too much hip hop and they don't need any more hip hop, even though the hip hop I'm sending them is great. So if they say no, that's it. Then that distribution channel is not available to me. If they say yes, then what they require is that the music rights owner give up all control as it relates to sync. So the company is going to set the fees. The company is going to dictate who gets to use the music. Is going to take 30 to 50% for a commission, and is going to delay payment anywhere from 1 to 6 months, depending on the company. And then besides that, they dictate how the system grows over time. They dictate how maybe the language changes in the agreements, and various other things that may or may not be beneficial to the music
So what
side.
I'm hearing here is when it comes to music, which is meant to be an artistic expression that some might argue should be, free in the sense of humanity to enjoy, has become relatively systemic. It's a huge system that it's like hard to maneuver through. And it basically makes it so that not everyone, and actually the majority of people, don't get to participate in the way that we might want to see them participating. Am I hearing that correctly? It's limited to those with time, money, resources, and know-how.
Well, I certainly don't think music should be free. I think that creators,
of course, but I mean, it's free to be enjoyed in an easy way, I suppose. Let me rephrase that, please. You're right. Those who create it definitely reserve the right to benefit from their art and their creation. To be the first ones to benefit from it, probably.
So it's challenging to license music. I would say the problem we're trying to solve isn't necessarily a change in copyright law or a change in how publishers own songs or represent songwriters. Our goal is to create a system that welcomes both independent artists and songwriters, as well as labels and publishing companies, and ultimately
that makes it easy.
Create a system and infrastructure that the world's copyrights can benefit from using. That's really our goal. And there are steps, there are a few problems we're aiming to solve. The grand vision is that we can simplify sync licensing all around, because if all the parties are part of the system, then it makes it much easier to license even more complicated songs. But there are definitely baby steps along the way. In the very beginning, we can only work with music that's one stop as well, because we have to have development milestones along the way. But so just to back up and kind of complete the picture of why we're doing what we're doing, or what Dequency is, with the online licensing companies now, that because they require the music rights side to give up so much control, that is limiting to the kind of music artist or music rights owner that's able to or interested in working with online licensing companies like this. So typically you will not see artists that you've heard of or that you recognize. And that is mainly a function of this, the requirement to give up all this control, and also the inability to service music that has more complicated rights structure. So what we're envisioning is a two-sided marketplace, because everything that's out there right now is just a one-sided marketplace. It's only catering to the licensee. The licensee, people get this confused a lot. Licensee is the person who licenses music. Licensor is the person who makes their music available for licensing. So we want to create this two-sided marketplace where the licensor has the ability to upload their own music without needing approval from a gatekeeper, can set their own fees, have approval rights over who gets to use the music, is paid instantly. This is the beauty of crypto, and has very, very low fees. And decentralization is what allows for this. Blockchain Web3 technology is what allows for us to be able to envision a system like this. So that's the idea. That's what we're building.
Perfect. And that actually brings us, it's a great segue into the tagline of today's show, which you chose yourself. And that is what, America?
The soundtrack to the metaverse. How can decentralized music licensing catalyze artistic collaboration? You already gave us like this big picture. What else could you share with us? Why is it relevant for today? How is technology a new element? Is it challenging? Is it not? What else?
Yeah. So, I gave sort of the grand picture, and as steps along the way, there are a number of problems that we can see what we're building addressing. And the first problem, I'd say that the problem that we're solving now, or we're at least creating tools to be able to solve this now, is we see this proliferation in digital art, NFTs, right? This is how many digital artists are monetizing their digital artwork. NFT as it's on its own is just a tool, it's just a data structure. But what's popular now in terms of how people think of NFTs is as it relates to art. And we saw, when someone has just a still piece of art, that doesn't necessarily lend itself to music, but there's a lot of motion digital artists, motion graphics, motion video. And we noticed that a few things were happening when we were seeing these. One is there was no music. There was music that seemed to be composed or was clearly composed by the visual artist. There was bad music, or there was pirated music. And it makes sense why all these things are happening. No music because it's difficult to license music. Bad music because they are finding music from sources that maybe the music isn't, the selection isn't great. Composing it themselves, hey, I can't find it anymore, I'm just going to go ahead and do it myself. Or maybe they're a music artist as well. So obviously that's a possibility. Or they're pirating music because they don't know better. And that's illegal. And maybe they get away with it, maybe they don't. But it's not great practice regardless.
Right.
And being on the music copyright side, I think it's not a thing people should do. So we wanted to, as a first step, create a marketplace that addresses the on-chain audiovisual content market. And so what does that look like today as we see it? One is for NFT art, and another is for metaverse content. What does metaverse content mean? It's a big gray,
Yes, I was going to say, big, huge buzzword we hear right now.
Yeah.
Maybe a lot of different interpretations of what that is.
Totally. And I mean, we define it as a virtual space, a digital virtual space. And there are many ways to define it, but there are bigger projects that are out there like Sandbox and Wilder World and Decentraland. There are a number of more contained metaverses or digital spaces that we're seeing. A lot of them incorporate NFT art in with a virtual world. And we're just seeing that growing and growing and growing. And early on, we were speaking with a company that was producing a metaverse event in Decentraland for Fashion Week. And they had a virtual runway with virtual models, and they needed music to play while these models were going down the runway. That's one example. There are other examples where there's music playing in an art gallery, and you can actually localize it. It's cool. As you walk around, as you get closer to the source or sort of turn around, it like moves around in your ears and that kind of a thing.
Neat.
People throw parties in these metaverse spaces. People have radios playing, whatever. It's like, it's just a new sandbox. It's a new media, and nobody is catering to this new media. That's not to say that people can't go find music. You can go license music in a traditional way, but then it comes back to that first problem, which is it's hard. And unless you have the budget or you know what you're doing, you're probably not doing it right. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I would struggle to do it the right way. It's hard. And it's also very new, and probably the fees that many of the more traditional catalogs and companies are going to charge are going to be too high for what these spaces can afford or what they're thinking about. So, we want to create an option where we're speaking to a music audience that is interested in this space. And so that's the first step is, hey, we're building this as a bridge from, Web 2 IRL, into Web 3. And then we're calling all digital native, blockchain native artists to come in and find music and collaborate. So when we say we are catalyzing, visual and art collaboration, that's what we're talking.
I love it. It makes perfect sense. And in some ways, I would say catalyzing could be synonymous with evangelizing, like really making it known that this is what's happening, this is a problem, and we have this solution. We actually have one of our listeners, David Corvilla, and he says that what Dequency is doing is a very cool concept because licensing rights really are a mess when trying to do anything online. And we actually have another listener, his name is Margaro Sanchez, and he's wondering if there's any tokens specifically that you're using, or maybe we could talk a bit more to the tech of Dequency. What's the platform doing? How is it actually making this licensing rights mess easier for people to merge those two universes?
Yeah, so we are building on Algorand. Algorand is an alternative layer 1 to Ethereum. We love them. They're the only carbon negative chain, and that they're achieving that with a pure proof of stake, and then also supporting climate friendly activities out there, both projects on the chain and just offline tree planting and various other things. So that speaks to us. We believe that speaks to the creator community, and that people value that. Besides that, there's a core music and art focus within the Algorand ecosystem. Algorand just bought Napster, which was pretty big news and interesting. Also, LimeWire is building on Dequency as well. On Algorand as well. And then there's some other music projects, Opulus and various others. So it's a very interesting community on the music side, and our goal is to have internal collaboration and make sure that we're all building together and growing together, and that Algorand can be the music and arts chain. So right now what we have out is it's just our beta, and the beta has a small catalog from Riptide Music, which was the publishing company and label that I was a co-founder of, and it's just a few hundred songs just to get going. And some people can actually buy a license now on chain for NFT art or metaverse content. We're using Algo. So you mentioned what token are we using? So we are transacting in Algo, which is the native token of Algorand. We will be making some changes as we develop our protocol and launch our own token. That'll be a little bit down the line in the roadmap. So right now how it works is someone who's looking for music can browse the catalog, search by various keywords or genre, mood, other descriptor words. If they like an artist, or if they hear an album they like, they can browse and find, listen to more music. Once they have selected a song, they can go to license, fill out some brief description about their project, and connect their wallet. And we're using Algorand wallets. There are a handful of different wallets on the Algorand platform. Then they approve the transaction. Algo goes out of the wallet, and an NFT goes into the wallet. That NFT represents a receipt, and it represents the license. So that NFT has a pointer to the actual PDF language that lives on IPFS, and is something that is there as essentially a receipt to say I license this song and I have the right to use it. That will also be on, there's a user account as well. So it's not that you don't need that NFT. If you lose it, you still have that right. You've bought it.
Very cool. I like that model. It sounds very simple. My question for you is, what does the business model for you at Dequency look like? Are your users paying to utilize your platform? Are you getting some type of commission off of those exchanges that are happening? What's that model right now?
Yeah, so we take a transaction fee. Right now we're taking just a 5% transaction fee. Our goal is to get this as low as possible so we can get as much usage as possible. Besides getting as much usage as possible, we believe that by having the fees incredibly low, and by giving control to the music rights side, that we'll be able to attract a much higher, more sophisticated music artist and music catalog than what would be interested in working with the current online licensing platforms. And we believe by doing that, that will then mean higher transaction fees and higher transaction volume, because these are artists that are not able to be licensed anywhere else online. And that then should have a positive flywheel effect of, who's using the platform, what kind of opportunities we can bring to the table.
Nice. It really sounds like a win-win and a shift toward the future of music, for sure.
Yeah, and I can feel that there is a lot of passion inside of your company. The employees, you mentioned internal communication, growing. What other core values do you have? What are those unique elements that you will have if you work at Dequency?
Yeah. So, we talked a lot about our values at Dequency, and we're having a lot of fun doing this. And this is I would say one of the biggest core values is we want to have fun. We want to not take ourselves too seriously, although we think we're doing, great, serious work, but we just want to enjoy as we're doing it. So if you see our Twitter feed, we're pretty irreverent on there, and we enjoy that. One of our core values is to be pitted, which is our own internal term. So there's a meme out there. Many people, at least in the States, have seen this. It's a surfer from 10 or 15 years ago, and he's talking about how he was surfing. It was an interview after a surf, and he's talking about how he got in the surf barrel, and talks about getting pitted. And so for us, getting pitted means be in it. We are all in this space because we are intensely passionate about Web3 technology, about crypto, about what this can mean for revolutionizing technology and the internet and the way that we all work, humanity. This is a big movement. We're in a bad time, just crypto winter, but this, we believe very much that this will all shake out. This is a blip, and it's going to be massive for the world. So how do you then know that? How do you stay on top of things? It's moving very quickly. It is being, listening to podcasts, it's talking to people, it's going to the conferences, it's checking out Twitter. It's just constantly being in it, being pitted. That's what we say. Be cool is a huge value for us. And what does that mean? Be kind.
That's subject to opinion, right? That's pretty subjective.
It is. So we talk about it a lot. What does that mean? What does it mean to be cool? Don't be a jerk. Is it help people out? Raise your hand to help if we as a company need it, if people need it. That is not my job description. I don't ever want to hear that. that is not okay, because that's not being cool. So right. Really what it comes down to, when you're judging your decisions and your actions, it's, is what I'm about to do or say, is that being cool or is that not being cool? And so choose the path that is being cool. And yeah, for sure, it's up to discussion, but I think all values, they're all subjective to a certain degree, and it's why we have to just continue to talk about it and define it, and so that we, at least as a cohesive group, can have a similar opinion. And that only happens over time as we get to know each other.
That's amazing.
Yes, it's really cool. Pun not intended, but that's exactly what happened. Thank you so much, Keatly. We're actually at the end of our half hour, if you can believe it. It was amazing to learn from you, to learn about Dequency and how you really are innovating music with tech. We certainly look forward to your future success. And yeah, it's been great learning from you. As we do come to the final minute of today's show, my question is, as co-founder, what do you think you got right with Dequency, and what is something that maybe you would have done differently?
In a minute, okay.
No, you can go a little longer. It's okay. It's not gonna cut us off here. There's no like.
Yeah. What did we get right? I think we got the culture right. I'm excited about that. It's a great way to filter the right people into our organization and be aligned, because And also, we're running this remote, right? We are in the metaverse as a company, so that means that we have to have trust. And how can you have that trust unless you're speaking the same language and defining these values and continuing to reinforce them and talk about them on a regular basis. So I'm excited about that. I think we're doing that the right way. I also think we got our concept right. Whenever we are talking to people, whether it's in or out of the industry, in the music industry, in the crypto industry, in kind of many industries out there, many people have had a negative experience with licensing music, both from the licensee side and the licensor side. And at the moment, we seem to be the only crypto project, Web3 project that is trying to tackle this issue. There may be some that are in stealth mode, but I have not been able to see others that are coming out. So seems like we have a good idea there. So we're going to continue down that path. What would we have done differently? That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe we would have focused on the protocol design before the product design. I don't know if that's a bad thing. I don't know.
Okay, fair enough.
I like what we're doing. Let's put it that way.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Again, thank you so much for joining us today, Keatly. It's been a pleasure. We wish you and Dequency nothing but success. We do not have any other shows coming up this week, but you certainly can catch us next Monday at 12 o'clock Pacific for our recap, where we will be filling you in on our opinions of Keatly's show today. Dun, 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 dun. It'll be all good, Keatly, don't worry. And then, of course, we will tell you what's coming up for next week. Until then, thank you and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.